For a change of pace, we're going to unleash my inner nerd today with a review of one of the better superheroes that came out this past summer, X-Men First Class, which is coming out this week on DVD and Blu-ray. The story is very simple. James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender play Professor Xavier and Magneto, played by Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in the previous films. They meet and decide to form a mutant superhero team when they run into a mutant supervillain named Shaw, clinching the X-Men series for a win in 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. In the middle of the Cold War, Shaw is playing the US and Soviet Union against each other, hoping they will nuke each other into oblivion so he can, you guessed it, try and take over the world.
Of course.
What complicates it for our heroes is that Shaw wants to wipe out normal humans not only because he feels mutants are superior to them, but because mutants are often hated and hunted down by them. This coming from the guy who used to work for Hitler. That leads me to the other complication. Even though Magneto can see Shaw's point, Shaw also killed Magneto's mom. Yeah, that's going to be awkward. It's very easy for a movie like this to go off the rails, but one of the things the X-Men movies have always tried to do is trade a complex plot for rich characters, and while that hasn't always worked before, they did manage to crack it here. The plot is just complicated enough to keep you from getting bored, and the characters are very rich and three-dimensional. This is particularly true of Magneto, who I really can't praise enough, because even though he solves his problems in completely the wrong way, his reasons are often exactly right. The acting is quite good all around, particular highlights being McAvoy and Fassbender, as you can imagine. I wasn't one of the many who hated January Jones as Emma Frost, but I wasn't exactly engrossed by her either. To be honest, Frost is also the source of one of my only gripes in regards to the effects as well. Just about all the other mutant effects are very convincing, but her ability to turn into a walking diamond looks a lot more fake here than it did in, for instance, the Wolverine movie. Oh, and speaking of the other movies, don't expect any continuity with them. Despite the characters looking just like they do in the earlier films, despite some of the actors reprising their roles in cameos, and despite the very first scene using footage from the first movie, apparently First Class is supposed to be a reboot of the X-Men film series. At least that's the excuse I've been given when I bring up how the flashback in X3 shows Xavier and Magneto on friendly terms much later in their lives, or one other issue. Despite that flashback and the Wolverine movie, both showing Xavier walking around when he's in his 50s, for some reason this movie shows him getting paralyzed in his late 20s. Real smooth, guys. It's one thing to ignore comic book continuity when starting a movie series, but ignoring your own continuity is just the height of dickishness. Ask any Highlander fans. So anyway, if you like comic book movies that are not only well-made in general, but have something to say about us as a species, you can do much worse than X-Men First Class. You just need to forget that it's the 5th movie in a series, kind of like this movie itself does. That's it for me.